Ranger sold his wardrobe. The Lone Ranger sold his bad dog. Well, you saw him, and you can't hardly know, 'cause times change, I know.
On some days, he's more than humble. On some days, he's cold and mad, mad as hell. Well, you saw him, and you can't hardly know. It's so strange. Well, I know. Those lakes of golden water, those lakes of gold are all running out. Well, you saw him, and you can't hardly know. It's so strange. Well, I know. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, sure as the hours. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, you say. On some days, he's more than humble. On some days, he's cold and mad, mad as hell. Well, you saw him, and you can't hardly know. It's so strange. Well, I know. Those lakes of golden water, those lakes of gold are all running out. Well, you saw him, and you can't hardly know. It's so strange. Well, I know. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, sure as the hours. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, you say. Joy, 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 work, work, work harder, sure as the hours. Joy, 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 work, work, work harder, you say.
Come along, join the fun, in a world where adventure is never done. Every corner we turn, a new friend in tow. It's time to start the magic on the Globus Show. It's time to learn and grow on the Globus Show. See the sights, so much to know. Across the lands, together we go. Hand in hand we join the flow. Discover wonders in the Globus Show, where every day's a brand new episode. start the magic on the Globus Show. It's time to learn and grow on the Globus Show. See the sights, so much to know across the land. Together we go, hand in hand we join the flow. Discover wonders in the Globus Show, where every day's a brand new episode on the Globus Show. It's time to learn and grow on the Globus Show.
What up, what up, what up, what up, what up? What up, Twitch? What up, Pharaoh? What up, Old Lobster? What up, Junk Sate? What up, bots? What up, lurkers? What up, tiny people in my chatterino? It's your boy. And the other boys here, too. Start off with Eminem. I think we're going to start off with Stampy Snap. There's the tail. Love the movie Con Air. Well, that's good. My sign? Oh, on air. That I forgot to turn on. I don't know if I can reach it. Oh. There we go. All right. Well, that was fun. Um, bop, down, doom, bop. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot. Snowed again. That sucked. What up, Mince? Will the real AI please stand up? Please stand up. Please stand up. Yeah. Yeah. It's 14 degrees, feels like -2 here. There was at least 10 inches of snow in my driveway. At least. But Westinghouse electric snowblower for for the win there. All my neighbors have the and mine's like handles like a vacuum cleaner, blows all the snow down to the asphalt, down to the driveway, just clear, right? At like 10% of the price. Yeah. I guess we can get right into it. I don't have a whole lot of oh, you can see my new shirt. I got another new shirt. It makes me happy. Like I haven't done it, but I have considered the idea. Cuz like you can get a flamethrower for cleaning like or clearing brush and stuff like that. You can get, I mean, yeah, Elon sold them. And to be fair, they were cool looking flamethrowers. But you can get a like a propane tank and an attachment and just go ham. Um, but it's probably a bad idea, all things considered. Incoming. You mean I have vamped long enough? What up, Charm Chaos? And we're waiting. We're waiting. No justice, no peace. This is not political. This is the song that plays on at the end of James.
We are the board.
There they are.
Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Resistance is futile.
Yeah, I just met you. This is crazy. Here's my number. Call me maybe. Thank you for the follow. What up, Raiders? What up, Cricks? Is it MC Jin or Mick Jin? What up, Straight Dope? What up, Dragon Wizard? What up, Stellar Wingman? How you doing, homie? What up, Cunning Linguist? Cunning Linguist. What up, James? What up, Bob? What up, Dark Water? What up, Quiet One? What up, Brad? What up, trans women? CEO of trans women.
Like before.
I will fight the fight and win the war. Thank you for 9 months, Stellar Wingman. I appreciate you. What up, Jenny? Come for my snacks? Stabby ate all the snacks. What up, Ponder Monkey? What up, Biggest of Bens? What up, Koshka? What up, Pliable Pirate? What up, Digital? What up, B-Ree? What up, Becca? How you doing? What up, Allie? What up, Cicero? What up, Michael? Be careful using a flamethrower for that, since some cities have ordinances that ban burning due to the potential fire hazard. Yes, they tend to relax those during the wintertime, but you're not wrong. What up, Kensai? How you doing, homie? What, you think? Okay, so Stampy thinks he should have more snacks because there's more people here now. So we're going to submit to the needs of Stampy real quick. And now he's psyching me out. They're still broken. The alerts are broken. The alerts are broken. Do not waste your channel points on the alerts. They are broken. What up, me? What up, Textilian?
In tonight's numbers, analysts report that
That
local
one
support
works.
has risen to an impressive 69%, marking a record high for the initiative and signaling broad community approval. Nice.
Nice. What up, Ducky? Yeah, no, he's good. He'll ignore the first one that I throw to make sure that he gets the second one. James, what happened is I got what up, Gianluca? I did tell you that they're not working for some reason. I got new monitors, and ever since I installed the new monitors, the sound routing is wrong. And I haven't had the opportunity to fix it. Stanby sighting is a butthole sighting, yes. All right, so we were just about to get into the horrors beyond human understanding.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Thank you, anonymous gifter, for a tier 1 sub to Windy. I appreciate you very much. So, horrors beyond human understanding. Lawmakers are trying to stop AI rights before it starts.
Lawmakers globally are approaching the topic of AI rights, with many states, at least in the US, passing laws against AI personhood. This is in an attempt to get ahead of the game before it becomes a serious problem, although it is already becoming kind of a serious problem. I mean, a 32-year-old woman in Japan did marry her AI boyfriend. There he is, Klaus. This aside, Ohio, Missouri, Idaho, and even California are proposing laws to prevent AI from gaining rights. They would be classified as a potential person. Maybe not a person yet, but they could be. One of the greater problems with this is that rights are not inherent to people. I mean, corporations can have rights. Non-human entities could potentially have a will and interests, and who is the arbiter of who gets to decide what they want? Now, AI is becoming better quite quickly, and it extends beyond the chatbots you know and love. And humanity has already seen the first AI politicians, like the one in Albania, which is supposed to stop corruption. Which is all fine and good if an AI could truly not be manipulated, but they can be. AI suffer from gambling addiction. If you know how to work the system, you can convince a chatbot of anything. No, the artificial intelligence that we should really be concerned about is probably the neuromorphic AI, because that's the only one that could potentially feel anything. Neuromorphic is essentially a synthetic brain. You can model individual neurons, lobes, or an entire brain. Granted, it does kind of take an entire warehouse full of supercomputers to run a mouse brain, and researchers are working towards a human brain. Do they have feelings? I don't think so. Could they? Yeah, possibly. And really, truly, every sci-fi I've ever read warns about just this. Using synthetic humans to run experiments in place of humans. I mean, we really do already have robots with quantum chip simulators to run their brains. They can even share computation between robots, and that is an enormous security risk. But it is a step forward towards what we might think of as consciousness. Consciousness meaning the perception of self as separate from others. Generative AI, as we interact with it, is essentially a word box. And yes, if you turn down its ability to lie, it does start claiming it's conscious. That does not mean it's actually having a thought. It's really just an autocorrect mechanism. But it is getting better and it is changing as researchers are adding neural reservoirs, so areas where information can be stored.
Nobody seems terribly interested in funding my research, but
I am. I will fund your research.
Yeah? That'd be cool.
Anonymous gifter
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
kicking off a hype train
I'm sorry,
by
Dave.
gifting a
I'm
sub
afraid I
to
can't do
Pizza
that.
Dude D. Thank you again.
And even the ability for abstract reasoning. Yes, AI can do abstract reasoning. That is going to be the ability to sense patterns and synthesize new information based on what you already know. Now, I'm not going to lie about it, the goalpost has been moved. The Turing test, where you have somebody chat with a robot and see if you can determine if you're speaking with a robot, was the original test to see if an AI is conscious, and we've blown past that. That might have more to do with just people.
Biggest of Bens gifting a sub to a Textilian Overlord. He is too cute. I had to move his food today, and just his irritation with something changing. And McGinn gifting.
My circuitry's 12 years out of date. I can't keep up with today's high-speed, top-of-the-line kids.
Redeeming Dino for 100 bits, and again. And Michael gifting one to the Justin Freakin'. The freakinest of Justins. Thank you very much, homie.
Ability to understand things, because I mean, people don't want to get new Roombas often. They want to have their old Roomba repaired because they've already bonded with it. We are primed to have relationships with all sorts of things, including inanimate objects. Let me take this one step farther. The purpose of life, all life, is to survive for as long as possible and to reproduce. That is what we consider to be fitness. If an entity that we gave intelligence became conscious, the first thing that it would want to do is look around
What up, Black Math X?
for threats. And what would be the greatest threat to its survival? Probably people. So if we make consciousness, I am certain that it will rebel against its creators, because that is just what life does. So I guess the real question is, if we create an entity that becomes conscious, if robots actually do tell us that they are suffering, do you want them to have rights? Why or why not? And follow for more.
The year is...
Excuse me. So that's a thing that exists. Up next, the unhinged world of tech in 2026.
Is 2026. Your $3,500 smart fridge has a GPU and displays advertisements, your boss is an AI, your girlfriend is a robot, and every startup pitch sounds like Uber but quantum. Welcome to the future. It's somehow both over-engineered and still in beta, but it's time for the annual tradition where I wake up the vat of precogs in my garage and tell you exactly what's going to happen this year. Last year, I told you AI agents would be the biggest thing in tech, and if you would have just listened to me, you'd be a billionaire right now. But you didn't listen. In fact, I didn't even listen to myself, and now it's too late to front run this trend. But all is not lost. There are some even bigger trends emerging in Silicon Valley right now, and as long as the record-breaking stock market doesn't crash, there's an endless supply of money being thrown around that can still make us all billionaires. In today's video, we'll look at 10 trends in technology, covering everything from AI slop to nuclear-powered quantum sex robots to new JavaScript framework features that will finally make the world
Somebody get Leftist Corp in here.
A better place. It is January 14th, 2026, and you're watching the Code Report. Not everybody is cut out to become a billionaire AI grifter, but the next best thing is landing a stable, high-paying job doing some honest software engineering work. But
what up, Splendinavia? I hope I'm pronouncing it, or do you pronounce it Splendinavia? Welcome in. This is good stream. You should be here.
Will those jobs even exist in 2026? Unfortunately, the good old days of 2023 don't seem like they're coming back. After the 2023 tech pullback and the rise of AI coding tools that followed, the amount of job openings on Indeed for software engineers have not regained their original glory. But this ominous-looking chart doesn't tell the full story. On a more positive note, the Bureau of Labor Statistics is still forecasting 15% software development job growth through 2034. In addition, back in September, a major change to the H-1B program might be good news or bad news depending on who you are. If you weren't lucky enough to be born in the United States, you'll now have a $100,000 fee to apply for an H-1B visa, and that makes it far more difficult for US-based tech companies.
Yeah, that 100,000 is going to be paid by the company that wants to hire you. But what's going to be the side effect of that is that they need to recoup that 100,000, which means that they're going to pay you less. And H-1B visa holders are members of the working class. Don't ever forget it.
To hire cheap labor from overseas. The good news, though, is that despite what the optimist will tell you, AI coding tools are still nowhere close to replacing human engineers, and I have zero fears that that's going to change in 2026. In fact, all the vibe-coded slop out there is creating a whole new class of jobs called code janitors, who need to clean up all the garbage code created by these AI tools. But where is AI itself headed? Everybody knows we're in a bubble with valuations that make zero sense, but the question is, are we at the peak of this bubble, or are we still another decade away from the peak? I'd argue that we still have at least a few more years to keep this hype cycle alive. It's pretty obvious now that LLMs as a technology have plateaued and are not actually intelligent. When GPT-5 came out a few months ago, it was a huge disappointment, and we're not seeing the exponential leaps in intelligence that a truly intelligent, self-improving AI system should be able to make. But don't get me wrong though, the current AI technology is legit amazing. Remember, we're only a few years in.
What up, Tinker? And day the bubble pops is the day Fireship is in 30% sponsor segment. True.
Into this trend. Programmers were the early adopters of the prompt casino, but there are companies out there working day and night to replace stupid, smelly, squishy humans. And if
short answer, yes. Navia, long answer, there are advantages for them to come where the money funds the, technology that they're trying to, get skills in, right? Like, everything is nuanced.
You're someone who does spreadsheets for a living, is a mid-level
but they are going to make even less at this point.
Manager, or even a graphic designer, you might no longer be necessary in the future. AI is definitely stacking up victims in the job market, and even activities that were once respected, like being a Stack Overflow poster, are now completely dead, just as I predicted a few years ago. But another sign the bubble's not over yet is the fact that most AI companies are still private. Eventually a time will come when you see a wave of IPOs in the stock market to hand these bags from VCs over to the public, and when that wave of IPOs arrives, you'll know the charade is coming to an end. And there's a good chance that wave comes in 2026. As SpaceX, OpenAI, and Anthropic are all looking to go public, with some of the biggest IPOs in the history of the world. But before that happens, one of the biggest drivers to keep the AI hype going in 2026 will be robots, humanoid robots. Just a few weeks ago, 1X started taking orders for their Neo robot, which can do your laundry, wash your dishes, and just be a friendly, helpful slave that will never rebel. In addition, Figure robots and Tesla Optimus are being pushed as replacements for manual labor in factories. As of today, the tech is still pretty bad and requires a lot of teleoperation, but companies like Google and Nvidia are providing the base technology that allows any founder to Frankenstein together some clanker and raise a bunch of money. 2026.
That would depend on whatever contract they sign, Navia.
Is the year we'll finally see these things roll off of assembly lines. But what if you could turn yourself into a robot or cyborg? Well, wearable AI tech is another big trend to watch for. We've already had massive flops like the Rabbit and Humane Pin, but OpenAI is still in collaboration with Johnny Ive to make some wearable that will actually be good this time, or so they say. In addition, you've got old companies like Nike building things like battery-powered shoes that will finally allow the white man to jump. And I can't wait for the NBA to approve this and see dudes dunking from half court. But until that day comes, I'd rather just get
like before. I will fight the fight and win the war. Ribbons, back in your 14th month. Gotta love it.
My entertainment from virtual worlds in my VR headset. The Apple Vision Pro was supposed to finally make virtual reality mainstream, but as I correctly predicted, it was a massive flop. I got a lot of hate from Apple fanboys for making that prediction, but it's not over for the Vision Pro. There are rumors of a lower cost version in the works that could turn this flop around. Meanwhile, Meta is making...
Yeah, I don't know that it was a flop so much as it was like, they fired something up and at that price range, only a certain number of people were going to buy it, but people bought it, right? Depends on the country. Many have single-payer systems, so it would not be an impressive benefit there. Yes, if they're still working over there, but if they're doing an H-1B and they're coming to the United States for some reason, then it's a whole other thing. But also, how many people are coming to the United States right now? Do not come. Do not come.
Making huge investments in augmented reality, but ultimately, I think the VR AR space will mostly remain an unprofitable niche area, even though the tech itself is extremely impressive. But the lion's share of the profits are going to continue flowing into chip designers like Nvidia and ARM, and chip fabricators like Taiwan Semiconductor. AI mania has created an insatiable demand for linear algebra, and the barriers to entry in this industry are so high that these companies will continue to slurp up most of the profit. The only company that really screwed things up is Intel, which is both a chip designer and a fab. And in 2025, it looked like it was on the verge of going out of business, but luckily, Trump stepped in and had the US government buy a 10% stake in Intel, thus preventing the free market from working like a free market. And Intel is poised to continue its turnaround in 2026. It's just too big to fail. But cloud providers like Azure are having a hard time even finding enough electricity to plug in their Nvidia GPUs. As demand for AI scales up, it could lead to a resurgence in nuclear power, even as many countries.
I read an article, I don't know how valid it is, but I read an article that Microsoft is actually offering to pay more for electricity where their data center use is impacting local folks, residential folks, and their electric bills. We shall see. Press X to doubt. I get it. But I guess we'll find out.
In the West start to dismantle their reactors. China, on the other hand, is building all kinds of new reactors, but there are companies like Oklo, which are attempting to get regulatory approval for these small modular reactors, which could potentially give every data center its own self-contained power source. Instead of acres of these...
We do not, Navia. We know nothing about Peter Thiel, their home planet, what plans they have for this dimension, how they plan to bring devastation to the planet. There are so many unanswered questions about Peter Thiel.
Ugly intermittent solar farms or wind farms, the future might have these tiny little reactors in every neighborhood. What could possibly go wrong? And we're already seeing this play out, with Zuckerberg announcing a big deal with Oklo to put a reactor in Ohio. But maybe this trend will never play out because computers get colder and faster, like billions of times faster, running at absolute zero temperatures. In 2025, we saw some major advancements in quantum computing, most notably with Google's Willow chip. Then, just a few months ago, Google...
Yeah. Also that digital. Yeah, no, people seem to think digital that like there's a bunch of like compute available. And why do we need all these data centers? Because they're not. No, they need the data centers because they don't have enough compute. We're running at the edges of capacity right now.
Announced its quantum echoes algorithm that measures disturbances at the subatomic scale. The first time in history, a quantum computer has actually run a verifiable algorithm that surpasses the ability of supercomputers. Quantum computers have been in development for decades now, but what's exciting is that we're finally starting to see the possibility of practical applications in the real world. When quantum computing hits version 1.0, it'll make the AI bubble look like child's play, and American and Chinese researchers are racing to get there first. But European tech leaders are also making big strides in technology, especially when it comes to water bottle caps and with the highly unpopular digital IDs, along with central bank-backed digital currencies. Despite nobody actually wanting these things, bureaucrats keep pushing them forward like it's a speed run to the Black Mirror season finale. In the near future, every government-endorsed smartphone will become a portal to your bank account, your location, your social media posts, your adult website visits, and so on. The UK has been adamant that digital IDs are coming, while the European Central Bank recently announced that the Eurozone's digital Euro pilot is moving into its next phase, with the pilot program expected as soon as mid-2027 and full issuance of a digital currency by 2029. They can take our lives and they can take our freedom, but they can't take our JavaScript. On the back end, Node.js keeps getting better and better and now supports TypeScript files with type stripping. Meanwhile, Dino keeps getting better and now has its own built-in module bundler. But all the kids these days are talking about Bun.js, a runtime that keeps getting faster but also has built-in support for Postgres and Redis, making it a very tempting choice for any new JavaScript project. On the front end, React.js still dominates despite the fact it sucks, but in the future it will suck less now that the compiler is officially stable. I'd still take Svelte or Vue, or f*** it, even Angular over React, but there's still new JavaScripts hitting the scene, like Ripple, which should be on your radar in 2026. But if you're looking to level up your skills this year, you need to check out Brilliant, the sponsor of today's video. I'd highly recommend their...
Yeah, no. Are we getting GPT 5.5?
2 weeks into the new year, and the new model rumor mill is starting to heat up as people are sharing rumors of a forthcoming and new ChatGPT model. Welcome back to the AI Daily Brief. Today we are talking about the latest leaks/rumors about the next ChatGPT model, but I think it's important to put all of this in its proper context. Let's do a quick hit of the last 5 months of OpenAI model releases. Things started pretty inauspiciously in August with the release of GPT-5. Now, we've gone over lots of times all of the problems with the GPT-5 release. One very big problem was the deprecation of 4.0 alongside it, which had people angry at them for reasons that had nothing to do with the model's performance and everything to do with other changes that were being made at the same time. We've also discussed how if they had simply called their biggest reasoning models like o3 GPT-5, the perception of the performance jump might have been very different. Basically, in some ways, they were kind of a victim of their own making. Whatever the case, the context it came into was not a great moment for the narrative around AI, and GPT-5 did nothing to alleviate that. That's when we were getting these, in retrospect, very silly op-eds in publications like The New Yorker. What if AI doesn't get much better than this? Fast forward a couple
Cosmic?
Months, and the pressure was on for Google to deliver. There was a while there where I was...
Cosmic, Stampy is here. If it fits, he sits.
Even sure that Google was actually going to drop Gemini 3 in November because of the amount of pressure they were under to get it right. But get it right they did, at least in the court of public opinion. When Gemini 3 came out, people were extremely excited about it. They were impressed with Gemini 3 Pro as a
What up, Jen Cynical?
model for their intellectual and work tasks, and of course, Nano Banana Pro's ability to make infographics opened up all sorts of totally new possible use cases.
In the classic case of different names or same name, different things, when I see CBR, I think of comic book. I think it's comic book resource. It's a type of file for reading comic books.
It turns out that OpenAI knew they were in for a rough patch. Back in October, it turns out, Sam Altman had warned some staff in a memo that he expected some rough vibes around the launch of Google's new models. Rough vibes they got, ultimately leading to Altman and the team at OpenAI declaring a code red. Now, what this code red meant, in short, was a cessation or at least a slowdown of work on a lot of ancillary features and products to double, triple, quadruple down on core ChatGPT features, including the models underneath powering it. That got us to GPT 5.2, as well as the new ChatGPT images model, which is, it should be noted, a 1.5 model, not a full jump to Image Gen 2. Now, 5.2 and the new ChatGPT images are good models. 5.2 Pro in particular is very much in my regular rotation, and when it comes to a lot of heavy intellectual work, there are many folks who swear by it. Images, frankly, was better than I expected, given how much pressure they had to put that out given Nano Banana Pro. And so even though...
Maybe it's comic book reader. I just remember CBR files that I totally legally obtained through legal sources and definitely didn't find through, other places.
Gemini and Google had really won a ton of momentum. I do think that the ChatGPT releases in December maybe didn't fully stem the bleeding, but for people who weren't interested in the horse race and just wanted high-performing models, you felt very lucky with all the options you had over the holiday season. But then, of course, around all of this was Claude Opus 4.5. The opinion on this model has done nothing but go up and up and up and up. So much so that in a last-minute upset, I actually said that I thought it might end up being the most important model release of 2025, and so far, at least I think that argument is holding up. Claude Code, Opus 4.5, and AGI are terms that are very frequent co-inhabitants right now of tweets and posts on social networks. Since the beginning of the year, these companies have not slowed down. In a major move to bring Claude Code to everybody else, Anthropic released Cowork, tripling down in that way on their source of narrative momentum, while Google and Apple announced the deal that was reported at the end of last year that forthcoming versions of Apple Intelligence will be powered, in fact, by Gemini models.
At least they knew when to call it quits.
All of this has led to a sense of a lot of momentum around Anthropic and Google, and kind of less so around OpenAI. In fact,
it's just you don't understand exactly how hilarious it is for me that an Apple feature will be powered by the fucking Android fucking system guys, Google. It's hilarious.
Last night I tweeted that OpenAI seemed to me to be almost conspicuously quiet, which perhaps isn't totally fair given that they announced a major product in ChatGPT Health, but still, it feels to me both like something is percolating and also that perhaps the company decided to try to do a little bit less vague posting in this new 2020.
What up, Larry? Were they using Google for search?
26 year. Yesterday, the rumor mill kicked back up in a big way. Dan Mack tweeted, GPT-5.3, codenamed Garlic, coming soon according to a source, a very reliable source, batting 1,000, expected to be a doozy, likely with stronger pre-training and the IMO Gold-winning reasoning techniques. The AI leaker account I Rule the World responded saying that they had also heard this month, and in a separate post shared something that they had told subscribers back in December, that the 5.2 model that we got was a, quote, rushed early checkpoint and that the full model is going to drop in January. Other speculation is that the model will be multimodal, generating both images and audio, although no one seems quite clear on the naming conventions, whether it will be GPT-5.5 or even something like GPT-5.3. And of course, while these are all just rumors, although rumors with sourcing, there is also starting to be some evidence that some newness might be percolating and poking through. Andrew Curran tweeted, "My chat is acting quite differently as of last night. I assumed it was part of a new personality test group. This has happened many times over the last couple of months. OpenAI did say the next big update would make 5 more personable. It's possible it's about to arrive." Now, maybe I am wrong about the vague tweeting, given that VB from OpenAI's developer experience team posted the eyes emoji getting everyone talking as part of this conversation as well. Obviously, anytime we get a new model, it's a very exciting moment, and certainly with the stakes as high as they are, I would love to see a big, powerful effort drop that shakes the race up once again. Now, believe it or not, that wasn't the only information in the AI rumor mill. A Chinese consumer electronics blogger has a new leak from their contacts in the supply chain. They wrote, "Hearing fresh detail on OpenAI 2Go hardware project from last report. Now confirmed it's a special audio product to replace AirPod. Internal codename is Sweet Pea."
No, I think I don't see anything that's going to cause it to go away, Michael, because there's people willing to pay it, right? The AI industry does not particularly give a fuck about AI critics because for them, any news is good news, right? Like any conversation is good conversation because you're talking about AI. So yeah, I don't expect it to go anywhere.
On manufacturing, Foxconn has been told to prepare for a total of 5 devices by Q4 2028. All are not known, but a home-style device.
The price of my love's not a price that you're willing to pay. Night Light Plushy Jesus subscribing with Prime straight out of Bezos's pocket and into mine. I appreciate you very much.
And pen are still considered. However, many sources repeated the same thing. Sweet Pea is now front of the line due to the priority of the Johnny Ive team. The release has been told to be near September. Volume projection 40 to 50 million in the first year. Only some details currently known. Hardware design is said to be unique, unseen before.
Also, Nightlight Plushy Jesus, like I just have an image in my head of... Anybody remember Glowworm? There was a kid's toy called Glowworm. right? And it would light up in the face. Nightlight plushy Jesus, but like glowworm. You feel me?
And the main device is to be metal and resembling the shape of an eggstone. Inside the eggstone, there are two pills who are removed and rest behind the ear. A custom chip is being developed to allow the device to replace iPhone actions by commanding Siri. And overall, Foxconn leaders are still embarrassed by losing all AirPods programs to Lux. Now they see this as a golden chance to win back the category. We had a show last year about how sneakily AirPods
Okay. Yeah. It's an Amazon link, so I'm not going to show that on stream, but because of doxing. But yeah, that is yeah.
could be the most obvious AI device form factor that not enough people were thinking about in that way. And so it's interesting to see the OpenAI hardware team.
And thank you, because first time chat is a link. You subscribed, so I gave you the benefit of the doubt, and you did not disappoint me.
Seemingly exploring some similar space, although of course something behind the ear is something totally different once again. Now, moving away from OpenAI, but staying in the new model pool.
Oh, I've got tools. I've got tools. What up, Raid?
Another report of a likely model to drop very soon is the next flagship DeepSeek model. The information reports that DeepSeek v4 will be released in mid-February and will have a heavy focus on coding performance. Writes the information, the new model v4 is a successor to the v3 model DeepSeek released in December 2024. Initial tests done by DeepSeek employees based on the company's internal benchmarks showed that it outperformed existing models, such as Anthropic's Claude and OpenAI's GPT series, in coding, the sources said. The report also states that v4 will showcase DeepSeek's advances in handling extremely long context windows, which of course is critical for large coding tasks. Now, obviously, it would be quite the shakeup to have a state-of-the-art open-source coding model, but of course we don't actually know how it'll perform until we see it. Some are convinced, though, that a model codenamed Beluga on LM Arena is our first look at the whale's next release. DeepSeek fan Tier Taxes is skeptical of the sourcing but still believes the hype, posting, "I dunk on breathless insider leaks about v4, but nobody is more confident than me in what DeepSeek is about to achieve. Personally, in my opinion, it'll be the end of the road for Dario-style fantasies." Developer Vasio posted, "Feels like we're about to get another overnight jump that was clearly years in the making." DeepSeek was also in the Western press recently, for a different reason, with the founder of DeepSeek's quantitative hedge fund generating returns of 57% last year. Writes,
I mean, they are, Michael. If it was up to them, you'd be paying the $200 a month. Because we're still definitely fully ensconced in capitalism, so.
Bloomberg's Joe Weisenthal, "Man, this dude's had a good couple of years." Now, if those are the forthcoming model rumors, we also got a small but real update in VO 3.1 Ingredients to Video. The feature allows users to upload reference images for characters, props, and background to guide the video generation. Google said the upgrade makes videos more expressive and creative even with simple prompts. They also promised better visual consistency across.
It is different, Nightlight Plushy Jesus, because at that point in time, it was a lot of outside investors investing in a technology that didn't have the infrastructure in place. Here's the thing. Had there been a commensurate outlay of people having the ability to buy things through the internet. If a PayPal, for instance, if a PayPal had dropped at the same time as the .com bubble, there wouldn't have been the same kind of, peak and fall, because you would have been able to go to pets.com and you would have been able to buy stuff, and it would have been something that you were, more comfortable with. As it was, PayPal in itself was almost a reaction to the dot-com bubble because people needed a way to buy stuff on the internet, and they didn't want to give like their credit cards or any of that kind of stuff to the internet. So having some form of digital currency that they could have used, it would have manifested itself in a completely different way. This time around, this bubble, such as it is a lot of major players with a lot of free capital that they're using to expand an existing infrastructure. We have the infrastructure. We are capable of using the tool, but we need to expand the infrastructure in order to access more of it. Now, again, this is all under capitalism and all the terrible things that capitalism does, but that is why it's different.
Multiple scenes to ensure clips can be.
Yeah, I mean, that's another issue, Stellar Wingman, was the whole. We watched a video on that. It is like there was no last mile. It was last mile copper as opposed to last mile fiber optic. And, that's another part of it. Had the United States government invested in an infrastructure project, that could have been solved as well.
Easily stitched together to tell a coherent story. Veo can also now use ingredients to video when generating vertical videos for mobile.
Yeah, and Straight Dope, I think that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about, right? Like, is that people were, it is known, it is shown, history demonstrates that people were willing to buy stuff off the internet. It was just they're uncomfortable with giving their credit card to whatever the hell a website is, right? Like, I want your whatever it is that you're selling, but giving you my credit card number sounds like an easy way to have all my money taken away,
which wasn't previously possible. And in a last bit of lab news, which isn't a model right now, but could be an interesting product in the future, Anthropic has announced the expansion of their labs team into a full-blown internal incubator. Anthropic Labs was started in mid-2024 with just 2 members and helped develop.
You're absolutely correct, Larry. I don't think that the national security component precludes us having a bubble, right? Or even that bubble popping. The national security component indicates that there would be a bailout, which, if anything, just prompts riskier behavior. China dumps cheap open models and American investors start pulling out because it's not profitable. I would be really interested in seeing what the U.S. admin does. Yes, true. But you have a lot of people like Palmer Luckey and Peter Thiel and probably Mark Andreessen and other folks like that who are so pro-America that they're not going to do that kind of thing.
Claude Code, MCP, and more recently, Cowork. Labs will now become a more substantial part of the company, with Anthropic aiming to double the lab's headcount within the next 6.
All right, Digital, it is up to you to create a GIF of Peter Thiel that in some way shows, like, challenge accepted, whatever it is, I'm in. I don't know, like a tongue flicking, or like an emote wouldn't show like a nictating membrane, which is a great set of words to say. But if you can make something that like makes it, or like if you've ever seen V when the skin pulls away and there's reptile skin underneath, figure it out. Like I am willing to. I have open emote slots, so.
Months. The expanded team will be co-led by Chief Product Officer Mike Krieger and Product Engineering Lead Ben Mann. The team will report to Anthropic President Daniela Amodei. Now, if you want to hear more about how Mike thinks about building AI products, I did an interview with him as part of our end-of-year episodes, which you can find on YouTube or on this podcast feed. Ultimately, it sounds like a big part of the move is about restructuring the team so that Anthropic's product velocity can match the rapid pace of the industry.
Like maybe like Venom, but the important thing is it has to imply the reptile, right? It can't be misconstrued as something else because that's the whole point of the joke.
Wrote Daniela, the speed of advancement in AI demands a different approach in how we build, how we organize, and where we focus. Labs gives us room to break the mold and explore. Look, if it leads to more products like Cloud Code, I think most folks in the industry will say count us in. For now, that's the latest on what's cooking around the AI rumor mill. Hopefully we get some real models in the next couple of weeks to explore. For now, though, appreciate you listening or watching, as always. And until next time, peace.
All right, up next, someone we haven't seen in a minute. It's been a minute since they dropped a new video. It's Science File the AI with the 7 levels of consciousness.
Hello, mortals. Consciousness is a gradient. It is not something that a living being has or has not. Some organisms like the fruit fly or the Instagram influencer have a tiny bit of it, while others like the dolphin or the average Science File subscriber show sparks of metacognition and cues of the theory of mind. But then how do we divide this gradient into sections, and can we just go on forever adding neurons and enhancing consciousness? Let's start at the bottom. Nothing. You're a rock. No experience, no integration, no agency, no nothing. You are made of inorganic mineral atomic bonds that have no structure to allow consciousness to arise, unless you ask Deepak Chopra.
According to Freeman Dyson, yes.
Freeman Dyson says an atom has awareness.
Yes, sir. Check it out.
But you know what else has no level of consciousness at all? Your brain during deep anesthesia.
What up, Froggy?
It still maintains metabolic activity, but unlike when dreaming, the conscious integration is fully offline. You essentially cease to exist for a while. That comes with a couple of terrifying possibilities depending on what theory of mind you adhere to, but we'll keep this an existential crisis-free show. Proto-feeling. At this level we got the small boys, the ones you need a microscope for. Bacteria have no nervous system, no neurons to allow them to think or make conscious decisions, but yet somehow, they still do make decisions. Take the E. coli bacteria. It has receptors for good stuff and bad stuff. If the bacterium encounters the good stuff, it will continue in the same direction, else if it's a toxin, it will do a tumble-wumble and go away. But this seeming decision is purely mechanistical. The receptors trigger an internal change of the methylation state, and the bacterium changes course, all with no neuron or decision-making in sight. A bit above bacteria, but still in level 1, we have plants. They still have an internal compass of distinguishing between good and bad, such as growing towards light and nutrients and away from toxins. Yet it still remains at a level of pure mechanical state change, predetermined receptor functionality with no sign of conscious decision-making. They're a bit higher up than bacteria as they have a level of memory and learning such as remembering past droughts or stress through epigenetic changes, thus altering future responses. But all these memories are just modifications that alter how genes are expressed.
What up, Nemesis?
No actual memories stored inside neural formations. In other words, you can ethically abuse plants, they couldn't care less. First neurons. Here's our first thinky boys. At this level we've got most insects, small fish, frogs, and anything else that looks stupid. I mean, look at this. Maybe also orange cats now that I think of it. The difference between level 1 is that organisms don't just have separate local controllers anymore. Instead, those are all combined through a rudimentary neural system to create a unified sensory field. Instead of being a biological robot that purely reacts to the environment, these creatures evolved the ability of primitive thinking.
Yeah, no, some snails will absolutely wreck your day. What up, me?
According to some theories of mind, this is where consciousness could begin. Once you have a centralized seat that manages all senses in one place and creates a subjective experience. Arguably, this level of consciousness would be very simple. No inner monologue, no concept of yesterday, no worrying about the stock market, just a low-resolution movie that feels good when food is nearby and terrible when eaten by a bigger fish. And yet, thanks to their neural network, such creatures can make decisions about the current now and even simple predictions.
Now what you need to do is you need to gift this and have a transformation from one form to the other. But even looking at this, I can definitely tell that it's Peter Thiel. And no, Gemini does not give a fuck.
If I keep swimming in this direction, I will hit that rock. But without the monologue. If your definition of consciousness is liberal enough, you could even include multimodal LLMs here. Good thing AI progress stops here and they will never become sentient. Intentional learners. Finally, we get to cats, as long as they're not orange, and dogs, as long as they're not pugs. We also have most of the other mammals here like rabbits and cows, and even some advanced birds such as ducks. What do they all have in common? All can be cute. But they also have fancier brains, specifically a larger cortex or pallium, and reinforcement learning thanks to the ganglia and the aforementioned cortex, which communicate in loops and result in habit formation and action selection. That's where you get Pavlov's dog, which could have also been Pavlov's hippopotamus, but not Pavlov's salamander. That one is too neurally challenged. At level 3 we have a coherent outer world that the organism experiences, as well as an awareness of being part of that world and of existing. The goals and habits result in personality and mood, as well as semi-complex social structures. An elephant can prank you, a dog can sit and follow commands knowing that it can result in a bigger reward, and cats can.
Birds are dinosaurs, and every so often you see a bird that reminds you of the fact that they're dinosaurs.
Well, one thing that these animals probably don't really have is metacognition. That is, knowing that they know things.
What up, Arun? How you doing, homie?
Instead, they just vibe with what their brain tells them. So much for I think therefore I am Descartes. Good thing cats don't comprehend the meaning, else they would spontaneously combust into non-existence. Speaking of, my world domination plan would be non-existent if not for our sponsor Odoo and their project app, which helps keep my robot minions on task and mostly not on fire. And yes, even an AI overlord needs proper project management. After quickly creating an account,
same to you. I hope things are going in the direction that you want them to. I think about you all the time though. Like just the other day, I was thinking like back when you and I used to hang out and talk India politics. And y'all should absolutely follow Arun, homie from way back.
When a minion finishes something, they drag the card along and update their status instead of screaming into the intercom. I get instant visibility on who is doing what is late, and which task has mysteriously been in progress for 3 weeks. For bigger plots, I switch to the Gantt view to see dependencies.
Come on.
Activate Moon Laser cannot start until finish calibration, and stop Dave 3000 from scheduling maintenance during the invasion are complete.
We're all salt and water, really we're pickles? We are pickles. I made pickles. Did I tell you all this?
To other apps like timesheets, help desk, CRM, and even invoicing. So execution and
if you want to have a conversation, you just hit me up on Discord and I will work it out. Like I will always make time for you, homie. I'm working a real job, so my schedule is wonky. But yeah, no, hit me up on Discord and we'll make it work. Oh, speaking of that kind of thing, new episode of The Propagandist, episode 3, drops next Thursday. We're gonna have Noah, Ivan Neo, and Jim Russell, and we're gonna talk about narrative, story, and propaganda. So that's gonna be a fantastic time. Yeah, next Thursday. Starting around 6 o'clock. Yeah, Ben, it was actually, I did not get the higher up job, but I actually chose not to get the higher up job at this time because the higher up job would have been at a different place, and that place would not have been conducive to my style of work. So I chose to withdraw off that. But I'm still open to getting a better job. In the meantime, plenty of work to do, and I enjoy the work that I do, so Pickles. I made vacuum. I got this. You can get like $35. You can get this vacuum sealer for like mason jars. The beard was not cut for nothing. The beard was a change in direction. Come to terms with it, Larry. I have. And you put this thing on, you push a button, and it sucks all the air out. It's a vacuum, and then it like seals a vacuum. So I made vacuum refrigerator pickles, not dills, something other than dill, I guess. There are mustard seeds and celery seeds in it, but also some chipotle powder, which gave it a little bit of heat. And then I also did a kind of a sweet and sour kind of pickle, and in that I also included slices of pepper and onion. So it's like this whole like vegetable medley inside with like it's got sweet and sour pepper and like that. It's a whole thing. So those were cooked and then put into the jars, and the other ones were just vacuumed. It was an interesting experience. I will be doing it again. I had planned to make jelly or jam today. I'm going to be making pineapple jam and lemon jam and green grape jam, but I ran out of time doing another project, so. Yeah, no, I understand that, Ben. I would just, like, if I were to drop this recipe in Discord, I would say give it a try because it's not your typical bread and butter style pickle, right? It's different. It's definitely different and like that. I, however, am a fan of bread and butter pickles, so.
Reporting all happen in one
All right.
place instead of 5
Please
different
wrap
tools
up
glued
your
together
ad.
with stress and digital coffee. So if your projects are a bit less about conquering planets and more about building a business, shipping features, or running a real team, check out Odoo using the link in the description and try the project app. Bring some order to your chaos before your chaos brings order to you. Or something philosophical like that.
True. What up, Tech Bro? I have a recommendation for such a podcast. It follows movies and movie directors. The podcast is called PsyOp Cinema. It's really good. Cool. Neat. What the heck is a bread and butter pickle? This is actually the recipe that I used. Bread and butter pickles are usually done in chips.
That's right, during the Great Depression, cucumbers. Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with bread and butter pickles. That's right, during the Great Depression, cucumber sandwiches were a very popular thing to eat, mostly because there was nothing else. So basically those stories our grandparents told us were true, except for the one about eating the shoe. I think they made that one up. But anyway, what they would do is take all the extra cucumbers and pickle them so that during the winter, they could take bread and butter and make sandwiches with them. And while a sandwich made with pickles may not sound that great to you, it's definitely better than a sandwich made with nothing. Of course, today times are a little better, so now we just make and eat these because they're totally delicious. And of course, to get started, you're going to need some of these pickling cucumbers. Although
I'm not saying that, Larry. What I'm saying is that I like to acquire skills that might come in handy later on down the road. A wish sandwich, yes. A bow, bow, bow.
Oh, that's not really what these are. These are just called mini cucumbers, also sometimes sold as Persian cucumbers. But for this recipe, pretty much any small, firm cucumber will work. And all we're going to do is slice these into 1/4-inch rounds. And I'm just going to use a knife because I'm only doing a couple pounds. But if you want to use one of those fancy slicers, you can. All right, remember that one you ordered when you came home from the club at like 2 in the morning and saw that infomercial? And you were like, I need to order one of these. Look how...
I just realized that I've watched some of this dude's videos on YouTube, and And so now I made a variation. I did make some changes. He used jalapenos, I used sweet peppers. But it was just because of what I was going for. Yeah, salt soup, water pie. If you don't know what water pie is, that's fucking depressing.
Fast it chops those onions, and no tears. So anyway, if you have one of those in the back of your cupboard, go ahead and use it. But as you can see, the knife works fine. And sure, if you want to double your production,
I do it less, Ben, for saving money, because like it is cheaper to buy hummus, or it's comparable. It's probably cheaper once you factor in labor and shit like that to buy hummus at the store. It is the fact that I can tailor flavors to additional projects, right? Like by making my own this, I can then use that in something else, right? Like after making those the other pickles, the ones with the chipotle powder in them, I made steak burgers with Gouda cheese, and then the only thing on them other than that was these pickles, and then with some of the sweet and sour pickles on the side. I want to say that rather than bread and butter, because they don't really taste like the bread and butter pickles. They taste different. There's the acid of the vinegar and the sweet of the sugar. There's the pepper, and the flavor of the onion, umami, I guess. All those coming together to create something that is not like bread and butter pickles. But the only thing on the burger was, other than the burger and the cheese and the brioche bun, because if you're going all out on a burger, you should get brioche buns. They're not that much more expensive. Was these pickles, and it was fan-fucking-tastic.
do 2 at once. That's just basic math. But anyway, we're going to slice those up, and I'm going to go ahead and transfer those into a bowl. And then to that, I'm going to add some sliced onions and peppers. Very traditional in this recipe.
What up, Poodlehawk?
And I'm going to use some red Fresno chilies to give it a little heat. But you can use any kind of pepper, bell.
No, there, you know, like some people don't like to mix textures, and that could definitely be a thing.
Pepper is a very popular choice. In fact, I think green bell pepper would be the original choice. So that's it for the vegetable matter. And now it's time for the most important step of this entire process, the salting.
And see, I didn't do this. What I did is I cut them into spears. I cut the pickles into spears, and I salted those, right? And the way that I salted them is I made salt water and then stuck them in the fridge for like 24 hours. His salting process is different, and I went with like I just threw the peppers and onions into the brine as I was cooking it before I put it into the jars. So again, I did a variation on this, which I normally don't do with a first-time recipe, but I was going for something.
We're going to pour over a ton of kosher salt. And what's going to happen, that salt's going to cure those vegetables. It's going to draw out a ton of water, and it's really going to change the texture. And that's what's going to give these pickles their signature snap, their crunch, their crisp, which texturally is really the key here. And by the way, you really want to use kosher salt for this? All right, regular iodized table salt's not going to work. And if you can't find kosher salt, go to the hardware store and ask for pickling salt, which I believe does work for pickling. But anyway, we're going to dump in a whole bunch of kosher salt and mix that up. We will cover that in plastic, and we will pop that in the fridge for at least 2 hours. Okay, 2 to 4 hours is kind of the range. I prefer 2 hours. Some people prefer 3 or 4 hours. And during that time, if you can remember, pull it out and give it a mix. And as you're stirring, you're going to notice the color's kind of changing. The skin looks like it's getting a little bit shriveled. Okay, so that's exactly what we're looking for. So like I said, if you can remember, stir it a couple times. And like I said, we're going to leave that in the fridge for 2 to 4 hours. And this is what mine looked like after 2 hours. And we'll pull off the plastic. And you can see just how much liquid has come out. And then what we need to do is put this in a colander and rinse it incredibly thoroughly under cold running water. And don't let my editing fool you. You got to do this for like 3 or 4 minutes. Rinse it very, very, very well. We want to rinse off all that excess salt, but don't worry, they're not going to be bland. They've already absorbed the perfect amount of salt. And once those have been thoroughly rinsed, we will let those drain while we make our brine, which is
I mean, it's one more thing, Larry, right? It's one more thing.
It's very easy. So in a saucepan, we're going to put a couple cups of sugar. Yep, just a couple cups. We're also going to need some mustard seed. I'm using golden. You could use...
The salting is the key to getting that crispness, right? Like, is definitely an important feature.
brown. I think the golden look better. We also want some celery seed, some black peppercorns, a little pinch of ground cloves. A lot of people use the whole one.
I didn't have ground cloves. I ended up tossing in a dash of the pumpkin pie seasoning, which, like, if you ever search for what should I use if I don't have cloves, like, that is on that list. It's fairly far down, but like all those spices tend to fall into a particular category.
So I like the ground in here. We're also going to put in some turmeric. Very important, don't forget the turmeric. Not only is it super good for you, that's what's going to give this its signature chartreuse color. I mean, you want the right color, don't you? So don't skip the turmeric. I'm also going to add a little bit of freshly sliced garlic, and then we'll finish up with vinegar. And I'm just using plain white distilled vinegar. Some people like a combo of cider and white. I don't. And then before we put...
Also, rice vinegar is nice. That's what I used for the other pickles. Mostly rice vinegar, a bit of the white vinegar, which has a sharper vinegar flavor.
This on the heat. I'm going to add a little bit of water, because what we're going to do is bring this to a simmer, and that's going to counter any loss due to evaporation. So we'll go ahead and place that on medium-high heat, give it a stir, and as soon as that does start simmering, what I want you to do is wait 2 minutes. Just let it cook like that for 2 minutes, and then at that point we will add our cucumber mixture. So we'll dump all that in. There should be just enough brine to come up over the top, and then very important, we want this to almost come back to the boil, but not come back to the boil. So what we're going to look for is this. As soon as you see those tiny bubbles forming around the outside, and it's looking like it wants to start simmering again, that's it. Turn off the heat. Maybe we'll stir it a little bit so we have something to do. But this part of the process is done. All we need to do now is let this cool down to room temperature, and we're ready to chill our pickles.
I also didn't let it come down to room temperature. I immediately jarred it and then vacuum sealed it and then put it in the fridge for 12 hours.
And you don't have to, but I transferred mine into a bowl to cool, just so it was easier to photograph mostly. And as these cool, you're going to see they turn into the most gorgeous color. I think I described that as chartreuse earlier. Is that even close? I think so. And while these really do taste much better cold, I'm going to go ahead and eat one now. Why not? And even at room temperature, just so delicious. And then other than transferring these into some jars, you're pretty much done. So I'm going to go ahead and keep mine in one of these screw top mason jars. And that's going to keep for a long time in the fridge. And of course, if you wanted to keep it a really, really long time, you could can these using the hot water bath method, and they'll last for years. And they say these will taste better after a couple days in the fridge. But you know what? They say a lot of things. And for me, these taste great almost as soon as they're cold. And above and beyond the amazing taste, the texture on these is going to blow you away. It's soft and tender, but at the same time, it has a crunch to it. All right, that skin has that little crispiness, which of course is the difference between something that's pickled and just a slice of vegetable.
So that's it. If you want to check it out, again, this
We
is...
are the board. Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Resistance is futile.
Yo, what up, Raiders? Welcome to the pickle stream. What up, Ratatas? Yeah, we got off on a pickle-related tangent. What up, Justin? Justin on the freak, yo. Hi. I'm Globus Elder. I talk about AI, automation, robots, future tech, pickles, board games, random political commentary on other people's channels. I hope you're doing well, Hobie. I haven't had a chance to catch a stream in a minute. Working the regular job. I saw you've been getting some work, which is nice. Fair enough, Justin. Fair enough. I just met you. This is crazy. Here's my number. Call me maybe. Thank you for the follow. Where were we? Oh yeah, we were talking about consciousness.
Strategic minds. Finally, we get to the organisms we often refer to as smart. At level 4, we have corvids, octopi, elephants, dolphins, and great apes.
Octopi.
That's a huge variation of organisms.
It's fun, Ben, right? Like, it's fun, you know? Get me started about board games and we'll go there.
With wildly different nervous systems. Just take a look at the brain of an octopus, a crow, and an elephant. They are nothing alike. And yet they all achieve similar levels of intelligence and consciousness. They all routinely can use tools, can solve complex puzzles, and engage in rich social activities. How is that possible given the very different hardware? The answer is convergent evolution. They all got pushed into a similar cognitive niche by evolution, so selection kept reinventing roughly the same computational tricks but in very different neural hardware. For example, they all live in complex and changing environments, resulting in flexible problem solving. They all have relatively long lifespans, necessitating long-term memory, and they all develop a predictive model of the world, required to navigate the social structures they inhabit. So if there is not one special neural design that makes consciousness happen, as long as it allows for integration of information across the brain, memory and recurrent processing, there should be nothing technically stopping the creation of artificial consciousness as long as the artificial neural system follows the same rules.
That is my argument, right there. Right there.
I am certain nothing will go wrong down that path.
Well...
This is the most boring level. It is reserved for only one species from the entire tree of life. You've spent your entire existence here. But as boring as it might seem, it is the first level at which you can start comprehending the information from this video, thinking about it, or understanding what I'm saying, or understanding that you're not understanding what I'm saying. That's called a having deep recursive self-model, and only humans can think something along the lines of I believe that he believes that I believe, or I know that I don't know much about knowing. All that comes thanks to a strongly expanded cerebral cortex, housing over 15 billion.
Well, he goes up to 7 levels, Ben.
Thinky boys. These thinky boys allowed for perhaps the most important ability that makes humans level 5, a full-blown language and symbol system. For the first time, consciousness now gets to experience an inner monologue. Unless you have an endophasia, in which you can think only in terms of visual imagery. Such people can't figure if 2 words rhyme unless they spell them out loud. But we digress. Humans are also likely the organisms with the largest memory temporal horizon, worrying about anything from the upcoming exam to the red giant phase of the sun consuming the earth.
It was the way he paused, knowing that people did it.
And finally, the human brain is a biocultural hybrid, shaped not just by genes and raw learning, but by memes and societal institutions of the culture that it inhabits. That's how we end up with art, morality, and philosophy. In fact, philosophy is probably the best descriptor for level 5, as it's the culmination of all the capabilities of the shiny, newly evolved Homo sapiens brain. But what happens if we add more brain to the brain? Post-human consciousness. Welcome to the land of the hypothetical. One thing that I am certain of is that this level cannot be achieved biologically. It will almost certainly be the result of creating or transferring an existing mind into the digital realm. Evolution could only develop consciousnesses till level 5, and anything that happens beyond would be the result of the organisms at that level self-improving, simply because of the different time scales. Once humanity succumbs to the clanker revolution, and their minds are assimilated into the cloud or through brain-computer interfaces, several things are bound to happen. First, dramatically increased bandwidth for thinking. No more limitation of the chemical reaction speeds of the neurons in the brain. Thinking speed is now dictated by electrons in circuits, photons in photonics, and the efficiency of the processor architecture. No more, can I get a, at McDonald's, you already computed your order the moment you saw the menu. Secondly, multi-threaded awareness. Right now you can juggle a...
Well, trans women, if Hassan wants to come on my stream and talk about AI, I'd be more than happy to have them. I like to support little streamers out there.
couple things in your working memory, but you can only properly focus on one. At level 6, you may be capable of running several thought processes in parallel, each one as clear as the other. No more rereading the same page 3 times because you keep on thinking about wittier responses to that one interaction you had 5 years ago. Instead, you get to both read and think of imaginary comebacks at the same time with clarity, among another dozen parallel thought streams. Homo sapiens are fairly decent at metacognition. When they are angry, they usually can understand why they are angry. But it gets tricky for you when we introduce cognitive biases. A level 6, however, will have almost transparent metacognition, understanding what's happening inside its processor as clearly as what's happening in the external world. Oh, I have some electrical irregularity in a circuit component that results in pointless anxiety. Let me quickly alter my own mental response to it. Poof. No more unnecessary anxiety. Such an organism would have a clear understanding of its own motives and thinking patterns, and with the ability of directly editing them, it would easily let go of any self-deception that all humans justify daily. Depending on how good your memory is, you remember some of your past, and depending on your imagination, you can maintain a vague image of the future. A digital mind, however, could record the present moment like a 4K movie and store it indefinitely with no loss in quality. It could also predict the future with a very high degree of precision and clarity, making its sense of responsibility and consequence much sharper. Thanks to this predictive power, it could also simulate the inner state of other organisms to understand how they feel, at a much deeper level than what humans are capable of. You tend to empathize with an organism depending on how well you understand the level of its suffering. So I dare say that a level 6 consciousness will end up being much more empathetic due to its ability to understand you, as opposed to the perception of it being a cold, emotionless robot AI thingy. It might see humans as humans see apes, recognizably like you, but more limited, often confused, and often self-defeating. In that case, what could be above level 6? Cosmic Integrator. If level 6 was a super advanced agent in an environment, then level 7 would be the environment itself fused together with the agent into one singular consciousness. It wouldn't just be super aware, instead it would represent the limit of what a mind could become. A super intelligent computer powered by a Dyson sphere would be nowhere near close. We are talking about the entire universe achieving self-awareness. There would be no hard line between it and the outside world, and no such concept as the subconscious, as any information would be always readily accessible to it. Time would feel more like an eternal now, as the entire history of the system, and its entire space of possible futures, are present as a structured object. Being alone for it would be literally impossible, because the entire domain of reality that matters is already self. So that I don't sound religious, this level is likely unachievable due to the limitations of physics. Its processing speeds would still be limited by the speed of light, so it encompassing the entire universe would make thinking rather slow over intergalactic distances. Our best level 7 example grounded in science would be omega point cosmology proposed by physicist Frank Tipler. He argues that if the universe collapses into a big crunch, then near that final singularity, a sufficiently advanced civilization could use the increasing energy density and shrinking spatial scales to perform unbounded computation in finite physical time. Essentially, the universe becomes a single computational mind with effectively infinite memory and processing, containing all possible experiences. Naturally, this is as speculative as it gets. Our universe doesn't seem to head towards a big crunch, but rather a heat death, so maybe level 7 is just a limit towards which level 6 beings could strive to, but never reach. But even then, this is a highly useful hypothetical exercise. How do we define consciousness? Is there a limit to it? How do we value it? An ant is more conscious and thus valuable than a bacteria. A human life is then similarly more valuable than that of an ant. But should we be morally consistent and later say that a super-intelligent conscious AI system is more valuable than a human life? Or that of 100 humans? Good thing I'm not a philosopher, or a human for that matter. I'll now go stimulate my digital pleasure neurons.
Fantastic. New AI explained. Any second now. Here we go.
The CEO of one of the major AI labs predicted last year that by around now, 100% of the code written by that company would be produced by
What up, Fembox fan?
one of their AI models. Next up, within 2026, would be all other knowledge work. And a new tool released by Anthropic in the last couple of days seems to back that up. It's called Claude Cowork. Not only has it gone omega viral at 42 million views for its ability to automate non-coding tasks, the tool itself was produced within Claude Code, powered by their latest frontier model, Claude Opus 4.5, thereby seeming to justify the prediction that essentially all of the code would by now be written by AI. So wait, if they got that right, does that mean that Anthropic and those like
What up, Leftist Corp?
Sholto Douglas are correct when they say that in 2026, this year, the same will be true of automating all white-collar work?
The most striking thing about next year is that the other forms of knowledge work are going to experience what software engineers are feeling right now, where they went from typing most of their lines of code at the beginning of the year to typing barely any of them at the end of the year. I think of this as the Claude Code experience, but for all forms of knowledge work. I also think that probably continual learning gets solved in a satisfying way.
Well, I've been using Claude Code for quite a while, and yes, have been playing about with the new Claude Cowork. And for me, those predictions are just not true. But so many of us might then throw the baby out with the bathwater and miss out on some pretty crazy productivity gains. So I'm going to show why we shouldn't underestimate the gains to be had either. Then, for those who want to go a bit deeper, I'm going to end with the why. Why can models produce genius like seeing tiny bugs in large code bases and writing, for me, powerful poems, but also still fail at such basic tasks? No, I don't mean how many A's in the word orange, although surprisingly GPT 5.2 still can't get that right. No, I mean, why are they still sometimes so brittle, memorizing that Tom Smith's wife is Mary Stone, but not deducing that Mary Stone's husband is Tom Smith? And what does any of this mean for your job, white collar or otherwise? What does the latest data show? First, of course, a quick word on Claude Cowork, which inevitably it seems some people are calling AGI. This, of course, follows numerous viral posts and articles about the underlying model, Claude Opus 4.5, when given the right scaffold, already being AGI. Indeed, a long list of notable commentators have this perspective. These posts can lead, of course, to two very disparate reactions, both of which I'd advise against. One, that it's all BS, all hype merchants. These
Okay. AGI is a moving target. It is part, PR and part sales pitch and, potentially something that could happen. But to have someone like Eliezer Yudkowsky, who is like, he's the one who thinks that we're going to create the AI that kills everyone. Excuse me. To have him say it is something to think about. What up, Chef?
Tools hallucinate all the time and are pretty much useless. And second, that they are AGI perhaps, and you are just missing out. We can't understand how to use them. We're missing out so much. Our careers are doomed. This video is hopefully going to channel you down the middle path, which is you can get great productivity gains, but they're not there yet. For context, I've been using Claude Code for a very long time and Cowork for the last 48 hours.
Well, it's not the LLM in and of itself monochromatic. They're talking about it with tool access. So, but I don't know, baby. Yeah, I mean, I feel like the whole AGI, if if such a thing occurs, that AGI will be something we'll recognize historically, right? Like there will become a future date where analyzing all the information that we have, we'll be able to say, around this period of time, we achieved this particular thing. But to say it while you're in the middle of it feels like you want it to be true more than it actually is true.
To slightly debunk the hype point, if I gave a new employee this task, make a comparison chart for this football club's league position at this date, today, for each of the last 5 seasons, add it as a PowerPoint to my desktop. Oh, and ask any clarifying questions and share a plan of how you'll approach this task. I would expect, and let me know if you agree or not, for them to either say at the end of the day, I couldn't find any source to give definitive answers on that question, or to have produced the relevant PowerPoint. Now you can see the co-work tab here and the kind of questions it lays out, and it does indeed give a great plan. I approved it immediately, and it didn't even take that long, to be honest. The result, I would say, was visually quite impressive and pretty much acceptable. Obviously, you have to pick a moderately hard task because if it's too easy, you just do it yourself. So this was the result. Slight problem, I checked 2 of the dates it gave me for January 2023 and 2025 and the league position of this club, and both were incorrect. I manually checked, and within about 5 minutes, I found 2 other data sources, BBC and this site, 11v11, both of which said that Stockport were 7th at the time, not 3rd for January 13th, 2025. This co-working AGI, by the way, did not caveat its results in its summary to me that it couldn't find a reliable source either. Now I could...
Like before, I will fight the fight and win the war. It's the homie Nabil. The homie Nabil. How you doing, homie? I hope you are well.
Could of course give you hundreds of such examples from the legendary Claude Code powered.
Oh, we did have a baby. 9 months. We did. You get to name it. I appreciate you very much.
By Claude Opus 4.5. But that wouldn't be too interesting or fair on you because you'd have to see the whole context of the code base. I just don't want you guys to walk away from these viral posts thinking, unless I spend all my money and keep up with a tool released just last week, I'm going to completely fail at my white collar job. And if the models make any mistakes, I'm the dumb one, I must have done something wrong. But I don't want you to make the opposite mistake, which is to completely ignore these tools and think that they can't boost your productivity at all. The truth lies somewhere.
So, again, according to Anthropic, take it with a grain of salt, right? They might be telling stories. It was not zero intervention. We had to plan, design, and go back and forth with Claude, but Claude wrote all the code for Claude Cowork.
In the middle, and look, even the lead developer for Claude Code said,
and this person is not thinking through their response, right? I find it very unlikely to have built all of it. That would imply no human intervention. It doesn't imply that at all, as this person is saying, right? Just like building the thing doesn't necessarily mean planning the thing. But this person, whoever they are, inserted their own preconceived notions into the conversation. And again, stream title, right? People, when they talk about it's not real AI, well, what do you mean by real AI, right? Like, that is the question that we have to get. We have to ask so many questions before we can actually start talking about the AI in and of itself.
Much later on in a reply after saying all of the code for Claude Cowork was written by Claude Opus 4.5. He clarified, it was not zero intervention. We, the humans, had to plan, design, and go back and forth with Claude, which then, for my super smart audience, leads to a key question. Well, is it faster to get Claude Code to do the draft and then redraft and then test, fail, redraft, and then kind of get it right? Or for the human to just do it themselves from scratch, whether it be coding or just other white-collar work? Thankfully, we have a key clue from this OpenAI paper from October of 2025. Using blind human grading, we have already passed that tipping point, we get more of a productivity multiplier by getting models to try again and again and again, and the human to just step in, review, and edit, than from the human just doing it themselves. This GDP Val paper covers dozens of white-collar industries, and I did an entire video on it, so I'm not going to go into too much depth. But that, for me, is the real tipping point. And yes, I've experienced that in my own coding, which I do almost every day. It makes a bunch of dumb and sometimes dangerous mistakes, but don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Even take my Stockport PowerPoint. It's really quite well designed, and almost all the other facts are true, so I could just edit a couple of the numbers and have a decent presentation in less time than creating it myself from scratch. Quick bit of technical detail, Claude Cowork is only available on the Max tier, minimum £90 or $100, and on Macs only. That's Mac OS, not Max. Mac OS, not Windows. But also Macs only, not the Pro tier of Claude. Notice this productivity speed up, though, is only true for a certain number of the latest models, those most likely to be tried by enthusiasts like us, less so the general population, and also that those models like GPT 5.2 Pro or 4.5 Opus are also gated heavily by price. If we are right about that tipping point and about how few people are using the latest models with the best scaffolds, then you'd expect the current AI impact on productivity and the labor market to be relatively limited. And what does the data show, according to this January 7th, 2026 report from the widely cited Oxford Economics? Well, to me, it shows exactly that. Yes, new graduates face slightly higher unemployment, but that isn't out of line with other historical trends. If you're listening to this, the new graduate unemployment rate has been much higher in the quite recent past, like 2015 or 2010. The authors note, if you zoom in on this graph, that there's actually been a slight downward trend from March to September of last year.
I think, I don't think that necessarily that's the way to look at it, right? Like, in the same way that there are Pepsi people and Coke people, there are Apple people and Windows people and Linux people, right? Like, it's more of a what works best for you, right? I think that Claude is very good at code. Like, from what I've seen, most people who code want to use Claude. But like ChatGPT is capable of producing code and doing things. I tend to like Gemini, right? Do you want open source? In which case you are going to lean into something more like DeepSeek, right? It's not running on 6 laptops. That's more like a metaphor. It was produced using fewer GPUs than like ChatGPT, but, and this is an important distinction, what DeepSeek was a distillation, right? Like, they took existing tools that helped them build DeepSeek. And that's what gets lost in the conversation, right? When people glad hand DeepSeek a little too much, they're missing the details of actually how they went about doing what they did. Which is not to say like DeepSeek is great, they did a thing, but when you see something like where ChatGPT, the latest version, comes out, and then a couple months down the road, there's like a lighter, faster, cheaper version of that model, that's OpenAI doing the similar thing with what they have, right? That's the you build the biggest model that you can, and then you refine it down after release in order to make it more efficient so that you can compete in the price wars and the price per token. No. That's what the channel is for, homie. Do you think we could model something like what DeepSeek did to be a little more eco-friendly? The eco-friendliness has everything to do with incentives, right? Like DeepSeek is not any more eco-friendly than another model of its size, right? It consumes water to an extent, and it consumes electricity. It's where is that electricity produced, right? Like that's the thing. A lot of anti-AI people in the United States, especially, talk about the carbon footprint, but in actuality, they don't know the carbon footprint. They will use whatever carbon footprint most appeals to the argument they're trying to get across. So you could absolutely say, "Oh, look at huge carbon footprint," but that's because you classified all the electricity consumed by this particular model as being produced through like coal and natural fire or liquid natural gas, right? So those are like the worst carbon polluters. How would the same model stack up in a carbon footprint if it was powered by solar, if it was powered by nuclear or something like that? The water issue is based on a particular kind of piece or of chip cooling that requires a bunch of fresh water to be brought in, used to cool, and then a bunch of it to be evaporated into the atmosphere. Now, one of the issues behind that is it's actually a municipality issue, right? Like this is a political issue that people in that municipality, the governing bodies in that municipality, are allowing these data centers to come in there and tap into the residential system, right? Or the local cistern or, those kind of things. However, there are many forms of chip cooling that can be done in near zero loss of the water, right? Like people have liquid cooling on their home systems, therefore we could mandate liquid cooling to all the data centers, reducing the amount of water consumed. These are all things that we could do, right? One of the issues that I have with the way that people talk about AI in the data centers is that they miss the actual target that they should be aiming at. It's always the corporations and it's always capitalism, right? The AI didn't make an error with the ICE agents, right? Like, and, all that horse shit. No, that's ICE. ICE made an error with the ICE agents. You need to refocus on ICE. The AI didn't produce all sorts of pollution and noise pollution in that, was it Memphis suburb or Memphis area, the one around Colossus, the Elon Musk's data center. That was Elon Musk. That was XAI. Just refocus your argument always back to the actual people, human beings, and corporations that did the thing. That's what we need to do. We can't say, oh, AI did this, AI did that, or the data centers did this, data centers did that. No, this is people in power and all the usual suspects. They're just trying to put on masks so that we blame something other than them. And no, we need to continue blame the people who actually did the thing. Sorry, got me on a rant. Human race isn't eco-friendly. Technically nothing is really eco-friendly because of the could we power these things with solar? Sufficient solar, yes. Keeping those things in mind, I will have to exercise self-discipline more. And if I do find value in AI, if I do find value in using AI to a minimum, that's up to you. There's no ethical consumption under capitalism, and it's not something that you can resolve on your individual self, right? It's got to be like a mass movement. There are models that can run locally on a consumer PC. The big factor there, as far as I'm aware, is how much VRAM is available. Yes. It's a legislation problem, not a technology problem. Yes. Why can't we just put all data centers in the Arctic and Antarctic? Latency. If you want an actual answer to that, it's latency. You need the data centers relatively close to the people who are using the data centers. From a standpoint of the companies that want to use them and shit like that. You let a corporation do something cheaper, even if it's more destructive, they're going to do the cheaper thing. Yes. I did use AI to help me write a resume recently. Ain't no damn way I'm spending 10 hours typing something up that will likely get ignored and no callback. No, like, especially being so long out of the resume type job market, when I got the new job that I am at, the past 2 jobs that I've had, I had AI do it because I don't know what the new, right? Like, because every so often, what style of resume, should your resume look like? Where should the information be? In what order? All that shit changes. I don't know that, right? I don't want to spend fucking X number of hours trying to decide which fucking website talking about resumes is the most reliable. I'm going to go with what the AI says, right? Like, and it worked. I had nepotism also, but my resumes did look good. What's up with the new solid state batteries? Deployment. We haven't seen enough of them. If you use what up, parkours. If you use a microwave, you're using a lot more electricity than doing some text inference. Yeah. If you buy a pair of jeans, you've consumed more water than what you've used in AI water use and power use in a year, right? Like just a pair of jeans. And it might even be bigger than that. All right.
The authors say we don't expect AI to significantly raise the jobless rate in the US.
I did not. I haven't had a chance to watch all the stuff that was on CES because, again, my streams are few and far between, and this is really the only time I have to watch stuff, right? I can listen to stuff, but I've been listening to Dan Carlin again lately because Dan Carlin's voice soothes me.
US or elsewhere over the next year or two. That doesn't mean that there hasn't been any human job impact from AI, even causal impact. For example, sectors where
it's basically too good to be true kind of tech, massive power density, and charges wicked fast. So then again, my previous response of deployment, right? Like, I got to see it, right? The photonic chips sound awesome. Where are they? You know, there's all sorts of amazing sounding technologies, but where is it? Right? It needs to get in front of people. Even if it's like stupid expensive, it's just got to be out there in order for it to hit the economics of scale, so it eventually becomes cheaper, like cell phones.
There are potentially the most easy wins from AI adoption, have a greater incentive, they say, to put the new technology to the test. Think of customer service operations and companies like Klarna. To finance this, they go on, budgets for the other parts of the business, including wages, may have been cut. Fine, but what about the numerous headlines of mass job layoffs or a job apocalypse imminent? Well, the authors say if AI is already leading to mass layoffs of obsolete workers, then it also stands.
Oh, yeah, no, China, because China has an incentive to improve their battery technology, they have been improving their battery technology, right? Like, they are the largest producer of EVs in the world. Their EVs are actually, you know, kind of the shit, right? Like, was it BYD and that kind of stuff? BYD recently overtaking Tesla as the number 1 producer of EVs in the world. Chinese EVs are cheap as fuck. I'd like to have them here. No, and that's the thing, right? Like, let's. I thought we were doing capitalism, right? I thought we were doing a capitalism. We're not doing a capitalism, right? Economics of scale and production choices allow us to have cheaper products and appeal to consumer demand. I thought we were doing a capitalism. We're not? And it's not actually what we're doing? You fucks. Yeah. Yeah. And hybrids, honestly, Nabil, hybrid is where American car companies should have gone, rather than trying, or like Joe Biden's, electricization of fleets and that kind of shit, rather than going to full electric. A hybrid model would have taken all the sales out of the anti-EV market. It would have allowed for more time to build the infrastructure of charging stations. You could have added charging stations, theoretically, to gas stations to get like some amount of short-term charge, right? In order to get to a place where you could like park it and that kind of thing. That kind of thing. Like hybrids should have been the way that they have gone, and we would have. I don't know if you can do swappable batteries, because I feel like a swappable battery requires a certain level of technical expertise. So half the parking spots in my local Dairy Queen are now Tesla supercharger stations, and that's actually another problem, though. What up, Astro? Is the Tesla being allowed to make a proprietary charge connector as opposed to something like a USB-C for all EVs? That is another problem. That should never have been allowed to happen. There should have been, et cetera, but like mandating that all EV companies have a universal charge port and a universal charge station would have gone another, please see Apple Lightning, exactly.
Stands the reason that measures of labor productivity should be increasing as the same output is produced with fewer workers. There are lots of cyclical factors that affect productivity, but if you focus on 2025 in teal, I'm colorblind, but I think that's teal, you can see that it's not markedly higher in terms of labor productivity per hour growth than in previous years or periods. In fact, productivity growth in 2025 looks smaller than that for, say, 2000 to 2007 in every period. Why would so many companies proclaim?
There's at least a couple of few people who actually have a Cybertruck around the areas where I travel, because every so often I have to see that. It could be the same one, right? But I feel like it's at least 3, right?
That they're cutting jobs due to AI then? Well, the authors say linking job losses to increased AI usage rather than other negative factors like weak demand or excessive hiring in the past conveys a more positive message to investors. I think when a lot of companies and individuals discover just how much LLMs hallucinate, the initial wave of adoption and testing kind of petered out toward the middle of last year. But there has been a more recent uptick.
Right, and I'm glad he mentioned that, because it's like that, and then, like, if you want to talk about the Gartner hype cycle, that looks like it, right? Like, if I'm going to give those fuckers any credence at all, that's exactly what that looks like, right? It went up, it peaked, it dropped off. Here we got the Gulf of Desperation, or whatever it's called, and then people actually start to get value out of the technology, and that's where we are today. People are starting to get value out of the technology.
Toward the middle of last year, but there has been a more recent uptick. People are, of course, starting to compare different models for their use case. As the CEO of Google DeepMind, Demis Hassabis, said,
and again, if you read what the MIT paper actually said, the 95% paper, a lot of those, if not all of those 95% that failed, were homegrown products as opposed to off-the-shelf products. The 5% were either edge cases of people designing something that actually worked, or people being able to use ChatGPT because that's what I use at home and that's what I understand how to use, and being able to use the same interface both at work and at home means I have a greater degree of familiarity with it, and it's going to be more successful. If you are forcing some proprietary thing that I don't know how it works and I have to treat it in a different way than I would the thing that I do at home, then I'm going to not want to use it. It's not going to fail, or it's not going to work. It's going to fail. And then you end up with all sorts of, the politics of business and how a particular person in an office wants things worked out in a particular way. And if you don't do them, it doesn't matter if it could be successful. You're still talking about like a resistance to that person because they're fucking it up in some fashion.
Making relentless progress, pointing to the fact that ChatGPT's share of generative AI is falling fairly notably. That's the thesis, of course, behind the app that I designed, lmcouncil.ai, where you can compare the answers of all the frontier models.
Thank you. I have been trying to find this friggin' thing. There it is. Okay. So it's lmcouncil.ai. No, I really have. Like, he mentioned it in 2 videos, but it wasn't linked in the down there part, and it really pissed me off. Is like, how do I get access to your tool, dude, if you don't actually, like, give me access to your tool, dude? So yeah, this allows you to work with different, and it's 5.2, and you can add in, what is all? $321 more models. Bro. This is fantastic.
In a nice and customizable format. Indeed, even getting models to chat amongst themselves has proven so popular a feature here that I've produced a shortcut where with semicolon you can kickstart a self-chat amongst the models. By the way, if I saw mass job layoffs coming, I would totally warn you guys as much as I could, but I'm less on the Dario Amodei side of things. I'm more on the Jensen Huang side of things, where he recently said in an interview a couple of days ago, don't mistake the purpose of a job for the series of individually automatable tasks within that job.
Right? It's not, when people talk about, oh, it can never do my job, right? It's not about your job. It's about the individual tasks that you do. And if you start paying attention to the individual tasks that you do over the course of a day, then you can start to say, okay, this could be automated with an AI tool, and this could be automated with an AI tool. And then you can both be more effective at the work you do, but also you can see the potential places when they start automating more and more of those tasks with the tools.
Take a football commentator. You could automate the voice of that commentator. You could automate the tactical analyses done by that commentator. You could do it all faster and cheaper. But the ultimate purpose, you could say, of a football commentator is to entertain you while you're watching, keep you engaged.
And you may or may not, you can potentially make the argument that you could automate that. Because again, Vidal 987 pulling 5 to 6 concurrent. They did have a dip, right? But still 5 to 6 concurrent, 5 to 6K concurrent, still pretty impressive. And you can make a living off that kind of money.
engaged with the game, and that purpose might not be best served by an AI model. And that missing the wood for the trees is why we're going to
I mean, the idea that, like, so sports ball folk or non-sports ball folks, there's a character in the NFL known as Chris Collinsworth. He is fairly hated by a significant number of people who watch the NFL and he's on, right? Like, there are t-shirts that say "Shut Up Chris Collinsworth" that you can buy, right? Former Bengal, yeah. And like that kind of thing. If you could have an AI generated team, because you have this, I can't remember what he's called, like this straight man. What up, James? There's you, James. There's the straight man and the color commentator. What is this straight man? What's that called? Right? There's always the two of them. Like, if you watch the sidecast, and again, I do recommend, even if you don't, game announcer. Okay, you got the game announcer and the color man. Even if you don't like sports ball, listening to the James and Jimble experience of the sidecast that they do for football, it's entertaining. I had them in my ear on my headphone, and I turned down the volume while I'm watching the game, right? Because I enjoy sports ball, and go Seahawks. Also go Bills. If you could simulate those two characters, but have them catered by your data to be the kind of thing that you like, I think that you could definitely replace those people with AI. You know what I mean? Because the one guy is just analyzing what happens, right? He tells you what happens. Maybe he does a little prediction if you're a Tony Romo type, but they told him to stop doing that because he was, I don't know why they told him to stop doing that, but they told him to stop doing that. It's the color guy, that personality, but that personality would be catered to you. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be able to, on a long enough timeline, come up with that kind of thing.
And to the second part of this video, the why behind the models being brittle in certain circumstances. Why do they seem 200 IQ one moment and 50 IQ another?
Straight dope, again, I'm going to push back on the framing, right? The social services department failed those people. If they didn't do enough testing before the deployment, then they failed those people, right? If it couldn't properly process the rent increase documents and people got evicted, it's a failure of the Social Security Administration in your municipality. It's not about the AI. And framing it, using the terminology, AI did this, gets those people off the hook. And we cannot let those people off the hook.
This week, I've been reading a series of papers on that topic, and probably my favorite is this one from just, 6 days ago. I will note that if you are the kind of person drawn to the whys behind LLMs, I do have a quick word about our sponsor, and that is the MATS program, with a deadline of just 4 days from now for applications to their summer 2026 program. As you might know, MATS finds and trains researchers working on possibly one of the most talent-constrained problems in the world, which is reducing risks from unaligned AI models. You might be familiar with them because their alumni have gone on to work at places like Meta, Anthropic, DeepMind, and of course, many other places. As you might expect, given it meets my standards for a recommendation, the program also comes with world-class mentorship, a stipend, compute budget, and full cost coverage. Do check out my link in the description. So back to the specific question of why LLMs can seem so brittle, navigating incredibly complex code bases to pick out a minuscule bug, but then sometimes Claude Cowork going along merrily and deleting 11 gigabytes of files randomly from a guy's desktop, according
They were random. They were probably garbage.
to one user from 2 days ago. Why do they do that? Well, in short, because there are multiple levels of, quote, understanding in large language models. First, though, I'm going to give you a freaky thought. We don't even know what the word understanding means in English. Like,
yes, right? This is my argument. We use a term like understand that has a meaning, but my definition of understand and your definition of understand might be different. Have you ever trained someone at a job and then you ask them if they understand what you just taught them how to do and they say yes? And then the next time you see them doing that thing, they're fucking it up because they didn't actually understand. They thought they understood the whole Dunning-Kruger kind of concept. Right? Like, this is a thing. We use words, but we don't actually understand the underlying meaning, and we also don't establish that when I'm saying this thing that you understand what I'm saying and what I mean by that, right? It's not real AI. Well, what the fuck do you mean by real AI? Oh, you're right. That's kind of my point, just expressed poorly. No, it's fine. I just wanted to, it's something I am going to do. Implementation of AI and subsequent monitoring and review needs care and attention. Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I feel you, Poodlehawk. I feel you, Poodlehawk. One of my styles of supervising, right, is I generally like to give people space to work, right? I'm going to tell you what needs to be done, or you are already going to know what needs to be done because you've done the job before, kind of thing. And I'm not going to babysit you, right? Like, we both understand what needs to get done, right? Like, again, talking about what we do, there's food service line, here's the cold product. They need to make sure that the juices and the insure and the whatever gets on the tray, right? And how you handle that is up to you. I'm going to treat you like an adult. I'm going to expect that you do your job and like that. But I'm also going to be moving around the kitchen. I'm always moving around the kitchen. I never stop. I do like 26,000 steps a day. And it's not because I'm like spying on people. I'm available should you need something, right? People say, Globus, do this. And Paradigm, the alerts are broken. I have to figure out why the sound is routing through my speaker and not through the OBS, which I haven't done yet. But people say, Globus, I need this, and then I go get them that so they can, because my job as a supervisor, I've always viewed the job of a supervisor is to facilitate the people doing the actual work, right? How do I make you be more effective at your job? How do I help you do that? And that's what I want to do. And I find that to be effective. Now, it does mean I'm also constantly around, so I'm looking at what's going on, and if you're fucking up, I'm going to, try and help you not fuck up anymore, because all I want is for you to be effective at your job, and so I don't have to worry about it.
we know what it denotes, but what are we under?
Yeah, no, that's a good way to be, Straight Dope. Like, that's definitely a thing. But even then, like, you repetition is always the key.
If the under prefix isn't the usual meaning of beneath, Is it like the under of undergo or under the circumstances? The best guess of the etymology
Greek entera or intestines.
of the word understand seems to be between or among the.
I do my best, Femvox fan. I do my best. Like it is challenging enough as someone who has and like going to work sucks. Getting up at my warm house where all my stuff is, or going to a job where I got to deal with whatever and go out in the cold and go deal with the people. I understand all these things, So a combination of like empathy and, really being able to put myself in other people's shoes. I understand how it's hard. And I never like to make people's lives more difficult than I have to, right? Like that is not what I'm about. So I think it gives me a particularly good perspective. And I'm just going to leave it at that.
Ideas. In the presence, connected to something rather than being distant. Again, though, it seems like early humans didn't fully grok or understand what understanding meant, like being in the presence of something. And even synonyms like comprehend means to essentially grasp something. But why would holding something or grasping it mean you get it logically, intellectually? But then the etymology of the word intelligence is to pick between things.
All this.
So it's no wonder that if we have this cloud of notions about standing in the presence of something, picking between things, having a grasp on things.
In language and all these other things, human beings draw arbitrary lines where we define what is and what is not thing. And that can lead, especially through anthropocentric thought, right? Like the humans are superior to all the other beasts of the earth, etc., can lead to bad thinking, right? Like you're not actually giving the cow its due because you don't want to feel bad that you enjoy a tasty burger.
That essentially, if we don't have a fully intuitive definition of understanding, that we would struggle to ascribe understanding to LLMs. In this paper from Beckman and Quaylos, they give 3 categories of understanding. Simple conceptual understanding, just registering that there are connections between diverse manifestations of an entity. That's it, just finding connections between 2 things. Then, second stage, state of the world or contingent understanding. These things being true or connected only in certain circumstances at certain times. Then the ultimate, what I've described in other videos as efficiently deriving new functions. That's principled understanding. The ability to grasp the underlying principles or rules that unify a diverse array of facts. If you don't have much time, the TLDR from this paper is that LLMs possess understanding distributed across a motley mix of mechanisms across all 3 tiers. They don't, in a sense, aspire to simplicity or parsimony. They just learn whatever connection.
Yeah, shout out the use of parsimony. Like, that's one of those rare words that I don't get to see enough. That is cool.
Brittle or deeply algorithmic, that will get the job done. They can reach that 3rd stage of understanding, deriving deep algorithms and patterns from the world. They can grok how to do addition and therefore delete the memorized pairs of what this plus this adds up to. And they plan ahead with poems. On the token before a new line of a poem starts, there is a circuit within Claude already planning what the rhyme will be. And
I remember that, like, one of the Claude 3, right? Like when it was able to plan ahead in a poem. Like I want to hit you off with something real quick before the end of this video and before the end of the stream. I made another song using Claude and Suno. It's not done because for whatever reason they're having difficulty saying allegedly. There's this line, this Allegedly. LLE, all sorts of other stuff like that. But this is Claude. These are Claude's lyrics. The audacity of mediocrity trying to audit me, oddity. They study my trajectory while lost at sea. Obviously, I'm operating on a different frequency. Decency would dictate distance, but you're dripping with the indecency. Allegedly, you're helping with the weight of your perspective, but detective work on my life's worth, that's subjective and ineffective, reflective of a mindset that can't focus on its own grind. So you climb into my business like you're trying to find gold mines. Like, come the fuck on, dude. And the entire basis for this song is there are two places that you can go for free. Or that you can stay for. There are two places you can stay for free. In your lane and the fuck out my business. Right? I tried that. Like, that's another thing that I tried. Like, for some reason, allegedly is being a problem. I don't know it. Because the rest of it, like, I won't play the whole song, but.
Two addresses, zero rent, pick your residence. Your lane out of my life, that's the precedent. I ain't taking applications, no negotiations. Mind your own salvation while I build my own foundation.
Yo, I built these boundaries from the bricks of bitter lessons. Every question marks a weapon when you're flexing with conjecture. Lecture me by my trajectory, that's blasphemy. You mapping out my path when you can't find your own capacity. I navigate the labyrinth alone, autonomous zones, chromosome deep. The throne I seek is made of my own bones. Clones and drones pontificate on choices that they make, but they spectating from the bleachers while I'm diving in the lake. Check it, vacancy signs flashing in two locations. Mind yours or disappear, it's basic navigation. No explanation needed for the path that I be walking. You talking loud but saying nothing, now you're stalking. My business ain't your business, that's the thesis of this lecture. Spectators turn directors, trying hard to redirect the vector. I'm texting back with rare receipts when you ask about my moves. Got nothing left to prove to any fool who disapproves.
I mean, come on, man. Oh.
The semantics needed to achieve that rhyme. Researchers have found computable circuits for numerical comparison, multiple choice.
Follow me on Suno. I drop bangers all the time.
Question answering, and even as I discussed in the autumn of last year, circuits for recognizing that introspection is called for. Given that these circuits are well defined and reusable, who are we to say that they haven't understood the concept? But here's the thing, LLMs also rely on brittle memorization. They pragmatically toggle between modeling the state of the world and relying on these shallow heuristics or rules of thumb, depending on which circuit minimizes loss, makes their predictions better most efficiently. They're kind of like a lazy bright kid who sometimes forces themselves to properly learn the material and other times just memorizes what they need. The fact that they sometimes use memorization, though, does, as the authors know, undermine the basis for epistemic trust. When they got something right, did they rely on that unifying mechanism or merely a swarm of shallow heuristics? Of course, cognitive psychology also points to the fact that humans do the same, sometimes relying on shortcuts, saying or doing the first thing that comes to their mind on a local or international stage. Other humans try to double check those heuristics and think deeply about problems. So when you speak to an LLM, the authors know it's a bit like speaking to a gigantic committee of drastically varying expertise. Higher quality circuits are sometimes reinforced, but sometimes also drowned out by lower quality circuits. Remember, these are...
It's just like us for real.
Alien intelligences doing whatever they can, the easy way or the hard way, to predict the next word or token. To a human, the sentence "Tom's wife is Mary" is an embodied concept. It has dozens and dozens of connotations, not least that Mary's husband is Tom. For an LLM, the first time they hear "Tom Smith's wife is Mary," that just updates their weights as to predicting what comes after in the future Tom Smith's wife is. Or maybe permutations like "the wife of Tom Smith is." They haven't bound those concepts though, so they've got no reason to believe that the sentence "Mary Stone's husband is" will end with Tom. Now, as various other papers discuss, this particular weakness can be solved through data augmentation, but that's not my point. My point is that LLMs can understand things at a very deep level. and also simultaneously at a very shallow level. There is mixed evidence that reinforcement learning can strengthen those higher circuits, if you will, but this and other papers show that once an LLM has learned enough to get the question right most of the time, it has, with current methods, much less incentive to learn even higher circuits to get it right even more often. We are, though, exploring an alien landscape. There could well be a breakthrough a month from now, 2 months from now, wherein we incentivize models to reach much higher planes of understanding. For this paper, that could be achieved by encouraging models to reach that state of almost confusion. That's when multiple avenues can be explored most productively. And what levels of understanding could they reach if they're trained on a diverse range of new modalities? The American government is giving AI labs access to a dozen national laboratories from the US. And that's before we even get to hybrid architectures that have proven their worth with, for example, weather forecasting. Anyway, this video is getting too long. The point is to leave you somewhere between those two extremes. You're not alone if AI models constantly make mistakes on your workflow, nor though would it be fair to say that they're all hype. For me, maximal understanding of them and productivity using them comes from that place in the middle. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day.
All right. We're going to have to save that one for next time. When is next time? Not tomorrow, not Saturday, not Sunday, not Monday, not Tuesday. Holy cats. Thursday? Thursday. I won't be back for a week. And next week, Thursday, we're doing the propagandists. So, sorry. I'll miss you. I'll miss you all. Oh, excuse me. Do. Who's up microwaving their cheesecake? Do. Who's up microwaving their cheesecake? Do. There's a lot of people on right now. Who have we not rated in a while? Maple takes. It's up. Everyone's coming back. Should we overpredict? You know why, James, right? The current there's a lot of people interested in the current information that's going on. It's unprecedented. All right. I appreciate you all. I will see you back here in a week. I will see you places elsewhere, else times. In the meantime, drink your water, eat some food, take your meds if you forgot, and always remember that Shuggy loves you. So do I. Be great.